Tesla has rolled out a new limited fleet of robotaxis in the great city of Austin, Texas, offering autonomous rides in Tesla Model Y vehicles. All of this despite ongoing regulatory scrutiny and pressure from lawmakers to hold off until the state of Texas's new autonomous vehicle law is set to take effect later on this year. Join us now to help us understand what is at stake here is Al Root. He's an associate editor at Barron. Al, grateful for your time here. So walk us through the details of Tesla's new, very highly anticipated launch, I should say. Surface zones, rideshare experience, what have we already seen?
Yeah, I mean, highly anticipated is a bit of an understatement. So October 10th, well, all the way back over a year ago, Elon Musk tweeted that they would host a Robotaxi Day to unveil its plans to have self-driving Teslas across the US. That happened on October 10th. They laid out plans to start service in Austin, Texas in 2025. June 22nd, Sunday afternoon, there was a handful of self-driving Teslas in a geo-fenced area about 10 square miles in Austin, Texas, paying passengers, Tesla's hand-picked basically influencers for rides on Sunday afternoon. So, the way it was put to me, in the baseball game, they put a run-up on the board in the first inning. We're very early in this robotaxi experiment, but Tesla has finally taken money from people to drive them around without anyone in the passenger seat of a Tesla.
How does this compare to what we've seen from a company like Whimo? I think they've earned themselves a lot of market share in the conversation, specifically in San Francisco, expanding to other cities as well. How does this from Tesla compare to either that or any other comparable products on the market people might be somewhat familiar with?
Yeah, it's really a tale of two approaches. So Whimo completes about 250,000 fully autonomous taxi rides a week in, let's see if I can get it quickly, LA, San Francisco, Phoenix, Austin. Just announced that they were starting service in Atlanta, I think this morning actually. And they have a fleet of about 1,500 cars. They buy electric vehicles from Jaguar, they modify them. The total cost of the cars may be $100,000, $150,000. They have LiDAR, radar, and they've been rolling out very slowly. Tesla, on the other hand, basically has its full self-driving driver assistance product that's on or available on millions of Teslas in the US. They take driver's experience, like my experience driving my Tesla Model Y, and they use that to train the system, only cameras and a computer, and they've used that to sort of develop self-driving cars. So different approaches, both AI-based, and then Whimo has been doing this for years. Tesla has just started doing this. The difference from Musk's perspective, CEO Elon Musk's perspective, is scalability. Whimo has to buy the vehicles, spread out slowly. Tesla could offer an Airbnb type service where you rent your Tesla into the network, and effectively all the cars that roll off the assembly line are theoretically robotaxis. So it's a very different approach. Right now, both are working. We'll get to the regulatory hurdles, but that's what's going on between, we'll call it the two leaders.
I'm curious on the pricing component. When I've ridden Waymos in San Francisco, I found the price to be pretty comparable to an Uber or a Lyft. Not exactly what Tesla's rolled out here this first week, right?
No, well, two points on pricing. Tesla, of course, charged a flat fee of $4.20 per ride. That is a reference Elon Musk loves to make, so that's not the long-term pricing. We'll call that promotional pricing for friends and family of Tesla. On the Whimo pricing observation, right now the dominant providers of ride-hailing are Lyft and Uber, and those are based on human drivers and surge pricing and all that sort of stuff. So basically, even though there's no driver in a Whimo or the Tesla, they still price off sort of the industry leader or whatever the market will bear. The idea someday is that removing the driver will take basically half the cost out of ride-hailing, and hopefully, or the promise will be, it'll completely change the equation for ride-hailing versus even owning your own car. So robotaxis would become more ubiquitous, and maybe the average family wouldn't own two cars, maybe they'd own one and a half.
We mentioned the regulatory hurdles a short time ago. Tesla's stock is very volatile. The stock is currently down 12% year to date, but just wait a couple of days and it could be a fundamentally different story. We know how important this is to the to the company and to Elon Musk, but getting it to pass the smell test for regulators, it's a different challenge altogether. What should we know there?
The regulatory regime, basically every state, it's like getting a license. So the self-driving car has to go down to the DMV, pass the learner's permit, and then pass the driving test, essentially. Every state has its own regulations. That's one of the things that people were hopeful that Elon Musk's relationship with President Trump would usher in, sort of a nationwide standard of how to get these things on the road. That still could happen, but that's not the case so far. So you're mentioning that Texas recently passed a law. Same sort of thing. The cars basically have to get permits to operate autonomously. So it's like a hurdle and it's something to follow, but what you should expect, like the Phoenix and San Francisco, LA, there are procedures where you basically fill out forms proving that your car can drive itself, and then you're sort of allowed to operate with a list of conditions, right? Like Waymo's in San Francisco, they don't pick, again, roughly speaking, this is correct, but they don't pick up from the airport, they don't go on a lot of highways, they have a lot, and then that's how the service expands. So regulators will be watching, but the way, and this is largely true, Elon Musk put this recently, in the US, it's basically you're allowed to do what you want, and then people have to prove that it's unsafe. Sort of the opposite is true in Europe. You have to prove you're safe, and then people will let you do it. So you can operate, and then it's a state-by-state sort of equation. Now, the ultimate question is, what it really gets down to, are these safer than human drivers? And what level of safety improvement will people accept? Right now, Whimo, which probably has the best safety stats given their operating history, roughly speaking, says it's an 85% reduction in serious accidents.
The state of Texas component about this is really interesting to me because when I watched Elon Musk, I think over the course of the pandemic, start to recognize that red states versus blue states were handling regulations differently, they were handling reopenings differently, and we've seen him move more and more of his operations to Texas. That also includes Boca Chica, where of course he's been launching the Starships, a whole other component. But obviously, I'd have to imagine that either it's the regulatory regime, lawmaker, policymaker support, fiscal spending support. Texas is the place for him to focus on this, and I'd imagine if there's a runway, so to speak, of success for the company, that probably has to be the state where this is proven out before it can expand. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think Texas is home court territory or home field advantage for Tesla. Now, there were some lawmakers, 2 Democrats, that wanted the launch stopped. I think that was largely sort of a political act. And so there'll always be the two sides. Any state, of course, is 60-40 is. There's still, in even your reddest states, 35 or 40% of the population will still be on the other side. But yeah, Texas is home field. And then any city which is relatively new, good weather, a grid, these are where you will see these things first. Whimo recently applied for permits in New York City. We'll see when they get to that. But southern U.S., relatively new cities, that's where these things will start, with, again, the goal of one day making them ubiquitous. So where will Tesla go from, it's funny, people were so excited about Tesla, which is fair. They launched the service, so they get the check in the box. But where do they go from here? They could open it up to anyone. They could expand the geo-fenced area beyond that small section of downtown Austin. So there's a lot to do to prove out, and that can excite people before even they get to their next city. But that's the sort of thing you're looking for.
Yeah, and the thought of self-driving vehicles here in New York City, where I live and call home, it seems unfathomable, but I thought the same about San Francisco, given the challenges of those hills, and Whimo crushes it. And so it's a fascinating space. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm up in Midtown, you're downtown. And I would just like to point out that we both probably have experiences of some of our Uber or cab drivers either up on a sidewalk or not really paying attention to cyclists. So it's not a zero. It's not a slam dunk that the humans are better than the cars even right now.
Yeah, fair enough. It's a fascinating conversation. Really grateful for your time. I hope you will revisit us here at Cheddar so we can continue to have the conversation, because it is evolving month by month, and it's a fascinating space to cover. Really grateful for your time. That's Al Root, Associate Editor at Barron's. Al, thanks a lot.
Anytime.